So, you've probably heard the word trust thrown around, right? Maybe in movies or when people are talking about serious money. It always sounds kind of complicated, doesn't it? But what if I told you it's actually one of the most powerful ways to make sure your plans for the future actually, well, happen? Over the next few minutes, we're going to pull back the curtain and show you just how simple the core idea really is. Let's start with a question that gets right to the heart of it all. Imagine you want to give a gift to someone, but not just yet. You want to control when they get it and maybe even how they get to use it. How would you do that? Well, that exact problem, that's what a trust is built to solve. To make this crystal clear, let's just use a simple story. Picture this. You've got a young niece, and you want to start saving up some money specifically for her education down the road. The goal's pretty straightforward. Keep that money safe and make sure it's used for exactly that, and nothing else. So, how would you pull this off? Well, the plan's pretty simple. First up, you give the money to someone you trust completely. Say your super responsible sibling. Step 2, you ask them to manage it for you, maybe even invest it so it can grow a bit. And third, you give them one single clear instruction. When our niece turns 18, give her this money for college. Seems simple enough, right? Well, guess what? That simple little 3-step plan we just came up with, that is the fundamental idea behind a legal trust. You've just created a way to separate the management of an asset from its final enjoyment. It's a relationship that's all about confidence and working toward a specific goal. Okay, so now that we've got our story down, let's put the official legal names to our characters. See, in the world of trusts, there are always 3 key players, and you're about to see exactly how our little story fits these roles perfectly. Here's how it breaks down. The settler, that's the person who creates the trust in the first place. In our story, that's you. Then you have the trustee. That's the person who manages everything. So that's your trusted sibling. And finally, the beneficiary. That's the person who ultimately gets the benefit from all this. Your niece. Settler, trustee, and beneficiary. Those are the 3 pillars of every single trust. But you can't just hand over some money and informally call it a trust. For it to be legally real, actually enforceable, it needs a few essential ingredients. Think of it like a recipe. You need all 4 of these for it to work. And here they are. First, you need a clear intention. Your words, your actions, they have to show you really mean to create a trust. Second, identifiable property. You've got to be specific about what's going in, whether it's $10,000 or a plot of land. Third, identifiable beneficiaries. It's got to be perfectly clear who gets the benefit. And finally, a lawful purpose. This one's a no-brainer. The whole point of the trust has to be legal. You can't use a trust for illegal stuff. That's just not going to fly. All right, so we've got the players and we have the ingredients. So how do you actually bake the cake? How do you make this thing official in the eyes of the law? Well, the process actually changes a little depending on what kind of property you're putting into it. And this is where the rules split. For what's called movable property, think cash, stocks, things like that, you've got options. You can use a written document, or sometimes just the physical act of handing it over to the trustee is enough. But for immovable property, we're talking land, buildings, the rules are much stricter. You absolutely must use a written document, which is called a trust deed, and you have to get it formally registered. That way, there's a clear, public record of it. Let's talk a little more about the trustee, your sibling from our story. This is, without a doubt, the most demanding role of the 3. I mean, the word trust is literally baked into the name, and for a very good reason. Their job isn't just to sit on the money. It comes with some very, very serious legal responsibilities. So yeah, a trustee can't just do whatever they feel like. They're legally bound by a strict set of duties. They have to follow the original instructions to the letter. They have to protect and preserve the assets, and they have to act with the same level of care that any reasonable, prudent person would with their own money. On top of all that, they have to keep accurate records and keep the beneficiary in the loop. It is a huge, huge position of responsibility. So, of course, this leads to a pretty critical question. What happens if that trust is broken? What if your sibling mismanages the money, or even worse, uses it for themselves? Is there any way to fix it? Well, the law has a very clear answer for this. And that answer is called a breach of trust. That's the official legal term for when a trustee fails to do their job. It's a serious violation, and believe me, the consequences are real. The trustee can be held personally liable for any financial loss the trust suffers because of what they did. This legal accountability is what gives the whole structure its teeth and, most importantly, protects the beneficiary. Okay, let's zoom out for a second.
We've talked about the players, the recipe, the rules. So, what's the grand purpose of it all? Why would you go through the trouble of setting one of these up? Because it's not just for a niece's college fund. The applications are massive. And it all really comes down to one elegant, powerful idea.
And here it is. The magic of a trust is its ability to split ownership into two distinct parts. You have the person who manages the property, the trustee, and the person who gets to enjoy it, the beneficiary. That separation, that's the secret sauce. It's what allows for incredible control and planning. It ensures that assets get used exactly how you want it, long after you first set the plan in motion. And that's why trusts are used for so much more. For providing for family members with special needs, managing assets for a charity, or even to help an estate avoid the long public process of probate court. It's all about control, and it's all about purpose.
So we'll end on this thought. At its heart, a trust is really just a way of making a promise to the future. It could be a promise for a kid's education, it could be support for a loved one, or it could be funding a cause you really believe in. So the real question is, what promises are important enough for you to protect? What's the one thing you would want to make sure is carried out no matter what? It's something to think about.